I think we can all agree that Pokemon is a pretty diverse game. I mean, with the new Gen 9 games, we have over 1,000 different species. And of course, that's not to mention the over 900 different moves as of now. However, with so many moves, there are obviously some that have risen to the top and have become widely used, such as Ice Beam and Thunderbolt. Of course, not all moves are equal, with some clearly being made to use during certain stages of the game. However, there are some moves that have just become, well, forgotten, or at the very least, irrelevant. So in today's video, I wanted to share some old Pokemon moves that have been lost in time, as well as some cool facts about some moves that I found interesting. If you find this type of secret fact content to be enjoyable, make sure to subscribe. It helps out the channel and it also lets me know that you guys like it. With that being said, let's jump into this dusty box. So we're going to start off with some Gen 1 moves, which may surprise you since it's the original generation of Pokemon, the most iconic. So how in the world can some moves be forgotten? Well, I don't think many people realize that while there are a lot of Gen 1 moves that have become famous, there are also a lot of obscure ones. Now this one isn't super obscure, but more so outdated. This move is Submission. It's a fighting type move with base 80 power with recoil damage taken. So why has this move out of all fighting type moves been forgotten? I mean, I don't really see anyone mentioning it or using it in modern Pokemon. Well, not only does it deal recoil damage, but it also has an 80% accuracy. Yeah, you heard that right. Recoil damage, bad accuracy, and not so good power for the price. If you've done even a little bit of competitive Pokemon, you probably have seen people complain about how terrible Wild Charge is, since it's literally the only good physical electric type move. So yeah, I think we can see why Submission has kind of just been lost in time. I feel like this is a move where if you've played through Gen 1 a lot, you're really familiar with it since it's pretty much the only widely learned fighting type move in that generation. Like seriously, if you wanted a Poliwrath or Hitmonchan on your team, you'd have to use this awful move. Time for another Gen 1 move, and this one's kind of ironic since binding moves are notoriously known in Gen 1 for being overpowered. If you were slower than your opponent and they had Wrap, Bind, or Fire Spin, you were in for a terrible time. But did you know that there was actually a fourth binding move introduced in Gen 1? That being Clamp, a 35 base power water move that effectively acted the same way as Wrap and Bind. It did only have a 75% accuracy, but to be fair, Fire Spin only had a 70% accuracy. So what makes this move so forgotten? Well, this is the entire list of Pokemon that can learn Clamp right now. And I mean, after Gen 1, all of the binding moves kind of just fell off. I mean, I don't really see anybody using Wrap, Bind, or Fire Spin at all. So if you've played through many Pokemon games before and have never encountered this move, I wouldn't blame you for not seeing it. So this move fact is one that people probably already know, but I found it to be quite interesting as it's an example of a move that gained notoriety after its introduction. So we all know Waterfall. In Gen 2, it was that annoying HM you needed to teach to climb a single waterfall, but it was weaker than Surf, so why would you ever use it? Once the physical special split happened, it gained its own identity as a solid physical water move, but did you know that it actually gets to take a seat in the Veterans Club? Because, believe it or not, Waterfall was actually in the game from the very beginning. But surely that can't be the case, since no Pokemon could learn it, right? I mean, what water Pokemon could? Gyarados? Starmie? Slowbro? Well, no. None of them could, besides two, Goldeen and Seaking. Two incredibly mediocre water types that you would have pretty much no reason to get unless we were intentionally trying to use bad Pokemon. So I guess it makes sense that it never became notable until a generation later. Imagine if Waterfall never became an HM. How obscure do you think it would be? Let me ask you a quick question. Which three types had the least amount of moves in Generation 1, excluding the types introduced later? Well, number 1 is obviously a no-brainer. It's Dragon, with the only move being Dragon Rage. But what would you say the second rarest move type is? Most people would probably say Ghost, as Ghost types are notoriously elusive in Generation 1, but that's actually not true. The Ghost type had 3 moves in Generation 1, which was very few, but the second rarest move type was actually the Rock type, with just 2 moves, Rock Throw and Rock Slide. Yeah, seriously, you can literally look it up. Those are the only 2 moves in the original Red and Blue. I found this to be interesting since it never really seemed apparent just how few rock-type moves there actually were. In fact, there are actually surprisingly few rock-type Pokemon at all in Generation 1. I think it's really just because the Geodude line is so abundant in those games. So we all know that there are a lot of kicking moves. There's Mega Kick, which is pretty useless, Double Kick, and Triple Kick? Wait, is that actually a thing? We all know about Mega Kick for being so inaccurate and Double Kick because Nidoran learns it, but did you know that there's actually a Triple Kick? Yeah, I didn't actually know this about a year ago, but that's really because it's only learned by 2 Pokemon, and before Gen 7, it was only learned by 1. Hitmontop, which, as you probably already know, has a really strange and specific way of evolving. It's actually not a bad move, especially with Technician, but still, I wonder how many people have seen this move in-game at all. Okay, I want you to think of one ghost-type move in your head, just a random one that comes to mind. Alright, what did you think of? Shadow Ball? Shadow Claw? Shadow Sneak? Maybe Will-O-Wisp? Well, I'm willing to bet that nobody watching thought of the move Grudge. Yeah, it has a cool name, so why is it really not remembered? Well, it's a really gimmicky and not super useful move at all. What it does is, if you faint on the turn that you use it, your opponent loses all of the PP of the move that it last used. I mean, it could be somewhat useful in some situations, I guess, but I can't really imagine it being used a ton, especially when Destiny Bond exists. And as we get towards the bottom of the Dusty Box, it's time to talk about the moves that have sadly never really gotten any attention at all. This next move is probably the most unused and forgotten fire-type move to ever exist. The move I'm talking about is Inferno. If you really want a summary of what it does, imagine a signature move that has the coolest name possible that's only learned by 1 Pokemon, and then make it complete garbage. Yeah, that's basically Inferno. It's 100 base power and 100% burn chance seem appealing, but then you look at its accuracy. Yeah, that's not a very high number. And to top it off with a red squeaky nose, it's yet another move that's learned by barely any Pokemon. And the few Pokemon that can learn it already have far superior options. Well, I say that as if there are many inferior options at all. If you really want to turn every Pokemon battle into a gamble, then by all means use this move. But if you're looking to just have some consistency, then I would say to stay far away from it. I talked about Waterfall earlier and how rare but useless it was, but did you know that in Pokemon Red and Blue, there existed a move that no Pokemon could learn by level up or by TM? The only way to get it was by using Metronome and getting lucky. The move I'm talking about is Kinesis. Now, the move itself is already forgettable, being a move that lowers accuracy but is inaccurate itself. In Pokemon Yellow, Kadabra and Alakazam could learn this move, but strangely, in the original Red and Blue, this move just wasn't learnable at all. And if you wanted to get this move in Yellow, you had to catch a wild Kadabra on Route 8, which was already pretty rare. This was definitely an interesting oversight, and because of it, I wonder how many people actually encountered this extremely rare move in their original playthroughs. And for the last move in this video, I'm going to be talking about a move so rare, useless, and forgotten that it might as well not even exist. And it's not even a new move, it's a move that's been around since day 1, but hardly anyone knows about it, or if they do, they don't even acknowledge it. The move I'm talking about is Barrage. Now, some of you may be scratching your heads right now. Some of you may even be thinking that I'm making a move up. But no, this terrible move has existed for as long as Gen 1 has been around. It's another one of those 2 to 5 multi-hit moves that deal low damage each hit, kind of like Double Slap and Fury Attack, which already makes it pretty bad. But the worst part about it is that it's only ever been learned by 2 Pokemon, Execute and Executor. 2 Pokemon that are normal type and have much higher special attack stats than physical. So why would you ever use this move when Bullet Seed exists exists. And I feel like even Game Freak acknowledges this, because it's been out of the game since Gen 8 when they first started removing moves. And to make matters worse, the execute line was in Sword and Shield, but they just didn't have Barrage as a move. So will it ever make a return? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Barrage, a move that's like a lonely ghost wandering around aimlessly since its very creation, ends up being shelved for eternity. Always forgotten, just piling up dust in the corner.